Prosecute the police!
All right, peace. Welcome back to Peaceful Vibes. Today we got one of my close friends, Nelson L, in the building.
Well, let me say this first before we get into the topic too heavy or get going. I just want to say I appreciate you thinking about me as far as a person to even talk to in regard to a subject of this matter and magnitude. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on your show and inviting me to come on here and kind of express some of my thoughts. And I want to commend you for what you and your wife are doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I really do think that you guys are an example of Asiatic excellence. I think that the family is the fabric of society. And when you and your wife and your son and just everybody, you know, the images that you put out there, those are good images for us to see.
Well, that's what we want to do, you know, and I make a conscious effort every day to try to represent the best of myself and try to be the best version of myself every single day. So,
so
you know, what you see is all by design, please believe.
Right, and it's honest. It's from the heart. It's true.
Right.
So I want to commend you on that. Say thank you for having me. Now, let's go ahead and dissect this. Let's dissect this thing here.
We want to speak on the George Floyd situation. You may or may have not heard about it already, but here on May 25th, 2020 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the police got called out and it was about an alleged forgery. It had something to do with him making a purchase in the store. So when they approached him, he was in a van with two other individuals. It was a man and a woman, and the police, they started a confrontation, allegedly, and to make a long story short, one of the police officers, I think his name was Derek Chauvin, he had his knee on the back of Mr. Floyd's neck, and you can see it on the camera. You've probably seen the pictures, and it was until the individual died and he was killed on camera, and there was a big reaction. I think the police precinct was just burned down last night, and there was a lot of people up in arms, a lot of people upset about what happened. So we just wanted to sit down and kind of speak about some of the things that happened and the reaction from some of the people. I guess the question that I want to ask, or the premise that I'm coming from, there's a such thing that you can look up called the Hegelian dialectic, and what that is, that's a theory to where you basically have a problem, then you have a reaction, then you have a solution to the problem. We're just speaking about what happened, and the problem, we already know what the problem is. We've seen the reaction from the people last night when they burnt the precinct. And I think all these things are happening for a reason, because the solution, we don't really know what that is or what they'll try to present. I've heard some people say things like, words like martial law and things like that, which we don't know. But how do you feel about that?
Well, when you say the solution, so we gotta let's be word conscious. I don't think that maybe. Let me back up and say this, because I was going to comment about this a second ago. Whatever the reason was that the police were called, now that's really immaterial, because it doesn't matter why they were called. They were called and they show up on the scene. We are, you know, I don't want to go too deep, but this is a pivotal point in time right now. It's a pivotal point in history where we are not, where a shift is occurring to where things are not going to go back to maybe the way they was, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of things that are shifting and changing, and it's all these conspiracy theories and things out there. However, I think that we do have a solution to the problem as far as we're concerned. Maybe not. Their problem's not necessarily our problem.
That's correct.
And so that's when you come with that Hegelian theory.
Right.
You know, and that's basically, you create a problem, you monitor the reaction,
right? Because you kind of predict what the reaction might be.
Deliver the solution, whatever it is.
The preconceived solution, because you already had the solution in mind when you came with the problem.
Right. So if you looked at it as a disease, you would create the disease, introduce the disease, wait till the people got sick, then come with the vaccine.
Right.
And so everybody wants to, you know, will fall in line, so to speak. This is what I really think is happening. We're talking about the police precinct being burned down. I read a lot of the articles that were coming out, and you hear certain people in important places saying, well, the building doesn't matter, it's more important than loss of life. But what I see happening is a stage being set So like we talked about, we know that there's these problems out here. There are contingency plans already put in place by certain groups, law enforcement groups, other groups, that if the people do this, we're automatically going to react like this.
Right.
And so this is already set up to go by design a certain way. What we have to do is not riot, not burn, not loot and pillage. And I want to talk about that. I want to go a little in depth about that, because there's a narrative out there where people say, well, why do they want to burn up their own neighborhood? Why do they want to tear up their own communities and things like that, right?
I didn't mean to
Okay,
interrupt,
because I was about to go.
he's on a roll right now, but I need to step in real quick because he just said we do not need to riot. We do not need to go out and do what you saw last night. But at the same time, about like 5 or 6 people that have been killed by the police, and that's just national story.
I'm reading all kind of posts just on my social news feed, talking about social media news feed, saying, marching doesn't do anything, and we need to riot. We need to do that.
Right,
that's the only time they talk about the Boston Tea Party.
That's the only time that people respect something is if you make them respect it.
Right.
So that's my whole. I'm coming from what you call quote unquote devil's advocate point of view. So like, how would you answer that question if someone's coming to you? You just said we don't need to riot, but we do. If someone said, we do need to riot because it's been going on long enough, and this is just big stories. It's been happening in smaller cities all around the country. Well, what's going on with that?
The blueprint is out there. So we know once we really start breaking down people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s message, and we see the message in the Bible about turning the other cheek. These things have been misinterpreted to us. So I want to break a few things down. First thing is we do not need to riot, right? We need to have a contingency plan, just like they do. So if a melanated person, really anybody, but since we're focusing on a certain class of people, a certain group of people, if a melanated person is murdered by law enforcement, by the police, by the system, this is what we're going to do, right? We need a contingency plan for that. Whether that is, we are not going to spend our dollars at McDonald's, for example. I just use them since a lot of us tend to like McDonald's, right?
Right.
And we say, okay, if another brother gets killed, none of us are going to shop at McDonald's. We're not going to spend 1 penny at McDonald's. If we did something, along those lines, we wouldn't have to go to City Hall or Capitol Hill. McDonald's would go to Capitol Hill for us. They would go up there and say, please do not kill another melanated individual, because my kids cannot go to college. I can't continue with my legacy. I can't do nothing without these people continuing to patronize my business. So we're going to put stopgaps and measures in place. McDonald's will fund programs to where there's sensitivity training or diversity training, or we make it a requirement that any police officer has to have this much hours of training, almost like a barber. A friend of mine said, I'm a barber. I had to go through this many hours to be certified as a barber, but a police officer doesn't have to go through this many hours to carry a gun.
Right.
I think you don't even have to have an associate's degree. You can graduate high school and go into the academy.
But I think one thing that you're getting at, and it's not so much a boycott, but just controlling where we spend our dollars.
We need to,
you know what I'm saying, and be mindful of where we spend our dollars when things like this happen. So that way we can get the reaction that we want to get based on because people care about their money.
Sure.
They
call it redistribution of the pain. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King defined it as. Basically, if you hit us here, we're going to hit you there. So we're not, and I use the turn the other cheek as an example. A lot of people think that means somebody smacks you on your left cheek, you turn the right cheek and let them hit you on your right cheek. But what that means is we can't fight fire with fire. If they hit us like that, we don't have the ability to hit them back like that. So turn the other cheek means we gotta turn this game around. We gotta shift over and redistribute the pain. And what that means is with our economics, with our resources, with our time, with our energy, with everything that we put into the system. We were misled almost in the aspect that our ancestors who did fuel the world economy with cotton and tobacco and other things that America supplied the planet with in order to gain her wealth. They'll try to make you think that they're not still gaining global positioning based on who we are. Just like they were with the products that we produce, we still are the source of we still are the fuel that runs this engine, right? So what I'm saying is, with us understanding that we have the power, we can demand that this does not happen again. We don't have to tear up anything. But I want to address this too before the thought escapes me. I was talking to a friend of mine, European person. He said, I don't understand, bro. Me and you was cool. We've been cool forever. So it's not like that, right? Why do people, when these things happen, tear up their own neighborhoods? And I explained to him, I said, okay, well, let's go to the neighborhood in your mind, all right? So we're standing on the corner of whatever, Martin Luther King and whatever, right? So let's look around visually in our minds and see what we see. I see a nail salon right here. That's owned by the Koreans. I see the payday loan store and the check cashing place right next to that. That's owned by somebody of a Jewish descent. Right next to that, there is the CV, the blood center or whatever they take plasma and all that
That's true.
stuff.
But one thing that my wife pointed out was that, when you go tear these places up, it's going to be your tax dollars that they're going to be using to try to get these places back up and running.
Right, and I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is the people that live in these communities don't have a sense of ownership of the community.
That's understood too.
They're saying, we'll tear it up because it's not ours. I don't own that check cashing place. I don't own the nail salon. I don't own the liquor store. I don't own the bank. I don't own the McDonald's. I don't own...
Right. I understand that.
So when you say we're tearing, that's not your neighborhood. See, if it's your neighborhood, then you own the pharmacy on the corner. Then you own the fried chicken place.
Let me ask you this, though.
So I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying that this is, people are not seeing this as it's their neighborhood.
But with that being said, on a hypothetical level, let me ask a question. Let's say we're talking about a place like a Black Wall Street, where maybe these things probably don't happen to begin with, but where they do own the pharmacy across the street.
Right.
This is owned by us right here, this convenience store.
Right.
Or this up and down the block. And something like that end up happening. Are we going to still go out on the streets and tear these places up?
If they're ours? I don't think we would. I think that...
So what would be the reaction, do you think that... Because at the time, what I think is this is kind of like a pre-programmed reaction we've been seeing go on since the 50s and 60s.
You're not going to tear your house up, right?
That's true.
If you get upset, I don't care how upset you are.
I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know what the reaction of the people will be, because this kind of seemed like more like an emotional reaction. I don't think a lot of thought went into how we're going to go out and get something accomplished, because I don't even know what they wanted to get accomplished besides making a statement. But my question is, if they do own these, I guess they went to the police precinct anyway, but if they do own these places in the community, are they going to go out and tear them up, which would probably be a no.
Right.
So what would be the reaction? Probably be maybe what you saw last night with them just going to go address the police precinct. That might have just been the
They probably would organize as business owners and people of the community and make sure that the community... See, if the community was a real community, that wouldn't be happening anyway.
That's what I think. Because
they wouldn't be in that community killing people.
Kind of like an oxymoronic question in the first place. Because if this is owned by this, that, and the other within the community, these police officers are probably going to be accustomed to dealing with these people anyway.
Or maybe the police officers grew up in the neighborhood.
Police officers are probably going to be
familiar with the people that live in the neighborhood.
And that's one thing. That's another thing that
people from outside your neighborhood coming into your neighborhood and enforcing law. They're not necessarily as sensitive all the time as they should be to the people in the neighborhood. Well, they're not as sensitive as someone who knows Miss Johnson and knew you when you went to high school and has been around your uncle and your grandma
playing
and
basketball
your
at the
cousin.
rec center and all
Absolutely.
that. Right, but one thing I wanted to say is, as much as this statement needed to be said, and this was a real sentiment, that's probably still a true sentiment to this day, when the group NWA came out with the song F the Police, I think that kind of was a detriment even though, like I said, it was a real sentiment that needed to be said, but what it did was it made a lot of good brothers not want to be police officers. So at the same time, when they could be, someone who grew up in the neighborhood, policing the neighborhood, making sure things go to where you don't see things happen the way that they went last night because someone grew up in the neighborhood and they understand how people, are, and they're not going to kill someone like that because they have compassion for these people. So, when brothers don't want to be police officers, I'm not saying everybody should go out and pick up a badge. But I'm saying if that's something that you want to do, I think, a statement like that being said in our community, it just automatically makes police officer be a job that brothers would not consider, even though there are a lot of brothers that are cops and a lot of brothers that are good cops. At the same time, I don't think it's enough.
Right. No, there's definitely not enough. And sometimes I get accused of being sarcastic, but I always say, if you're a good police officer, if you're a good cop, how many bad cops have you arrested? You feel me?
Probably.
So you cannot be a good cop while you stand by and watch a bad cop be bad and still call yourself a good cop.
Right.
You can't be. If you say you're a good cop, I say how many bad guys you arrested. Boy, I have 2,500 collars over my career. I had this. I arrested this many people. I took this many bad guys off the street. Right?
Right.
So you say you're a good cop, and there's bad cops out there. How many bad cops have you arrested? How many bad cops have you turned in? How many bad cops have you taken off the street? And if the answer is 0, can you really say you're a good cop? So let's really just get down to it and really look at it like, to me, what we're going into now. We're going into an age of enlightenment and understanding, right?
Right.
So what are we saying here? This is where we are now, right? This is not about if you are so-called black or white, because these terms are constructs or boxes that we have been placed in
Right.
order to vilify or glorify a member of the human family.
And to separate as well, because even by you identifying yourself as I'm a white male or I'm a white young female or whatever like that, you drawing a line and making a difference between you and another human being.
Now, why am I bringing that up? Because this is the point of division, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make young, so-called black people or all black people, which I would refer to as Asiatic or melanated people, hate or not like all white or European people or Caucasian people, right? As long as we can keep this thing going.
Which is what I spoke on, which is
Right.
the Hegelian dialectic. Go look that up. As long as they can keep that Fox division, which is a fake, as long as they can keep that fake division going.
Anytime they get an opportunity to put the dynamics together, the black and the white, they can put that together. They can twist the screw, make you behave and react in a manner which they already know, and then implement whatever means of enforcement that they would like to implement. What we have to understand as Asiatic people, the European is not our enemy. What the European has to understand is the Asiatic is not your enemy.